Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Absolutely nailed it with this breakfast showdown. This Karen thought she could push the boundaries, but our OP served up breakfast drama like a boss. But before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button, smash the like if you enjoy the content, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a juicy story. Karen wants her breakfast. I work at a hotel. I'm on the graveyard shift, and we have a continental breakfast from 6 to 9, and my shift ends at 7, so I'm in charge of setting up the breakfast. It's not a big deal. It's a smallish hotel and a small breakfast, but we do have waffles and a couple of waffle makers. Basically, guests come in, they get their batter out of the dispenser, and make their waffles so they're fresh and hot. We have 2 seasons where I live, winter and construction season. And we get work crews that stay at the hotel on the boss's dime and then go out for whatever job they're working on, and we very frequently get this one crew of guys. They're great guys. They're polite, and they don't leave the breakfast room a mess, but their shift starts super early in the morning. We also get hunters who are in and out before 6, so I usually have everything set up by 5:30 for them. I say usually because I'm only human. Sometimes I'm running late. It happens, but I'm never more than 5 minutes after 6. The workers and the hunters are super chill about it. They get it and don't complain about waiting a couple of extra minutes. I also feel the need to add that the foreman is amongst them, so he's eating when they are. So one day I'm running a little late. I got caught up with what I was doing and kinda lost track of time, so I was rushing to get everything set up while the guys are patiently waiting in the lobby. In enters Karen, who sees the time, sees the breakfast isn't ready, and decides to yell at me for it, saying that the sign says breakfast is from 6 to 9 and should be started exactly at 6. I tried to keep working while talking to her so I could get the breakfast ready, but she decided that was rude, so I had to stop what I was doing and stand there with her yelling at me until she ran out of breath and I could finish setting up. Karen complains to the manager. I get a verbal warning that I have to have breakfast open by 6 as I was about 15 minutes behind because Karen was yelling at me when I would have been less than 4 if she'd let me effing finish. Well, Karen was a stayover, and she was in the next day before 6. The manager refunded part of her stay under guest satisfaction, and I think she was hoping to find me doing something wrong so she could get another refund, but I was on my game and had everything set up by 5:30 like usual. She came in before the workers and saw me sitting at the front desk and sneered about me being lazy when I should be setting up breakfast. I told her the breakfast was already ready to go as the construction workers are entering, but I stand and walk over to block the doorway to the breakfast room and told them that I couldn't let them in because the manager said I had to start the breakfast at exactly 6. So I couldn't let them back in until then. And as I'm saying this, I'm looking directly at Karen. Slowly, heads turn, and Karen goes red and mutters something about coming back later and leaves. So I let the guys back. They said it was funny, and like I said, the workers have had to wait a little after 6 with no problem, and the foreman was there. To be clear, if I thought this stunt was going to cost them their breakfast, I never would have done it, but I knew that wasn't going to be a problem. I didn't see Karen again, so either she didn't come back or she returned after I left, but either way, I didn't hear another word from the manager about it. You want your breakfast at 6, you're going to get your breakfast at 6. Great that the guys were chill and had your back. Always nice to hear about the good guys that are out there too. And our second story. Karen slapped me because I was ignoring her. I'm an 18-year-old male born completely deaf and mute. Also, I'm partially blind in my left eye. I live with my sister, 28-year-old female, who had been taking care of me since our parents died. Recently, she got married and went on her honeymoon, so I'm on my own for a few weeks. This happened yesterday. Usually, whenever I go out, I'm accompanied by my sister due to my disability. But now, since she's on her honeymoon, I had to go out alone. There was a new supermarket opened in our area, and I needed some items, so decided to go there and grab them. My bad for wearing a red-colored shirt almost similar to the employees working there, but if you look closely, you could see that it was not the uniform. I was at the electronics section looking for some batteries when I see an old man struggling to get some DVDs at the top shelf. Since I'm tall, I helped him, he thanked me, I can do lip reading, and went on his way. Then I began looking for the batteries. That's when I felt someone grab my left wrist. I turned around and a woman in her late 40s slapped me. She was speaking something, but I couldn't follow her lips as she spoke too fast. However, I was able to catch some words like you, ignore, job, etc. So I signed to her that I'm deaf. Apparently this was the wrong move because she became more irate towards the signs. Again, she was yelling something, but I couldn't catch anything. So I took my notebook and started writing that I am deaf and mute. Before I could finish, she grabbed my notebook and pen and threw them away. Then she slapped me again and pushed me to the ground. Luckily, by this time, a store employee came to see what the commotion was about. He saw me on the ground and helped me up. Then he asked me what happened. Before I can sign to him, Karen starts to yell at the employee. I don't know what she said as she was not facing me. After she finished, I signed to employee that I cannot hear or speak. Fortunately, he understood and explained this to the lady, but she's still not convinced. She tries to assault me again, but I moved away. Then I wrote and showed the employee to call the cops on her. The employee nodded and called the cops. Karen tried to run away, but the security caught her. The police arrived in about 10 minutes. They first talked to the employee who explained the situation about how Karen assaulted me because she mistook me for a store employee. One police officer comes and speaks to me. I understood that he wanted my version of events, so I wrote everything down and showed it to the officer. Then they went to check the CCTV footage, then came back and asked me if I wanted to press charges. I gladly said yes. Karen was then placed in handcuffs and given a free ride at the back of a police cruiser. The manager then explained to me that Karen thought I worked there and she became angry that I ignored her. She'd been standing on my left side, so obviously I couldn't see her. The store manager then offered me a 50% discount on the products. I texted my sister about the events that happened, and she was livid. Oh, did I mention that my sister's a lawyer? She told me that she herself will be handling the case and would see to it that Karen would get maximum time. Court dates in around 40 days. I'm so glad you pressed charges. That entitled brat will learn that her actions have consequences, and she cannot treat people that way. You could have gotten so seriously hurt being caught off guard. And our last story. I'm not a part of your HOA. My wife and I bought our house in cash, no mortgage, October of 2013. When finalizing the sale, I signed documents related to purchasing the house, and I don't think HOA covenants were part of the deal. I can't find any in my copies of the paperwork. Turns out there's an HOA in my neighborhood that just sent me my first bill ever for over a year of delinquent dues, addressed to someone who doesn't even live here. I've already emailed them asking for a copy of any document showing that I agree to be bound by any covenants when I bought the house. I've had some back and forth with the property management company that runs the local HOA. After my initial email, they replied saying they didn't have a phone number on file for me and wanted to talk to me about the situation. I declined, requesting that the exchange go through email to keep a paper trail. They replied with this. First and foremost, I would just like to apologize for any miscommunications you've experienced. Just for a heads up, you will probably receive another letter by Monday, but no response is necessary as we have your email and are still researching this issue. I'm not sure if you're aware of this history we have had with this neighborhood. We started the property management with a local company who then sold the property to a national company, and within that national company, we have had 5 different contacts in a very short period of time. I apologize for delay in getting you a final answer, but we are still trying and will hopefully have an answer for you soon. Recently, I received another bill for unpaid dues, so I contacted the HOA by phone and spoke with someone about it. I was told by the HOA rep that their map shows that my lot is a mandatory lot, so I contacted my attorney and asked for all the documentation as well as a legal opinion on the matter. Turns out my house is in a different phase of construction than most of the other houses, and that phase, per the deed, is not required to join the HOA unless a consent form is signed. From what I can tell, the form appears to be binding to everyone else who will ever own the property until the HOA is dissolved. But if such a form was ever signed by anyone before me, it was never recorded. So my attorney sent me his legal opinion on the matter and the relevant documentation. I then forwarded that via email to the HOA contact I was working with, as well as printed everything out, the entire email chain and legal documents, and sent it along with a letter to the HOA office via certified mail demanding a response within 48 hours of receipt, or the matter will be considered closed in my favor. Here's the letter. To whom it may concern, I have been in contact with your office via email about the quarterly fees your office claims I owe. When I purchased my house at X address, I had a title search performed and it turned up nothing, saying I would be subjected to HOA fees. However, I've received 2 letters claiming that I owe HOA dues and they are past due, the latest total being dollars over $1,500. This letter and all attached documents are being sent to you as a final notice that I am not required to pay these fees. I contacted the attorney that closed on my property, firm name, and they provided me with documentation that supports my stance. If your office is in possession of any documentation that contradicts the findings of my attorney, please forward them to the office of attorney at attorney address immediately. Failure to remit documentation within 48 hours of receipt of this letter will be considered acceptance that no balance is owed by the owners of my address for HOA dues, and that further attempts to collect will cease until the homeowners sign the required documentation agreeing to be bound by the optional HOA covenants. Your office has had months to settle this matter as I first contacted you in February via email, and frankly, I'm tired of waiting on you to provide documentation. Any further contact on this matter that is not either a letter agreeing that I do not owe any dues or documentation supporting that I owe dues will be considered harassment, and I will be forced to explore my legal options. Sincerely, OP. That letter and all attached documentation was mailed on the 14th to the HOA's P.O. box and was signed for the following Friday. And I haven't heard anything from them at all. So at this point, I think the matter is settled. If they continue to try and collect the dues, I'll probably have to get the attorney that closed on the house to send a cease and desist and go from there. It appears that you've taken the necessary steps to protect your interests and assert your rights in the face of HOA-related complications. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.